Hey everybody, it's Ms. Straw. I'm back with a lesson on writing a thesis statement and topic sentences. This is a very important part of the structure of your writing, and it's important to get this down now because you're going to need it not only in English but in other courses because there's going to be more kinds of writing. So let's just get right into this. I'm going to share my screen here. It's already shared, isn't it? Okay. So a thesis statement, it's a sentence that states the topic and the purpose of your paper. A good thesis statement will direct the structure of your essay and allow your reader to understand the ideas you will discuss within your paper. Okay, it's going to give us a guide to your paper and also provides a guide for you so you can stay on the topic. Now, where does it go? It should be somewhere in the opening paragraphs of your paper, most often as the last sentence of the introduction. It's usually just one sentence long, but if it's a complex topic, it might be a couple of sentences. Now, how you write it depends on the type of paper you're writing. So they've got a few examples here. If you were doing an argument, then you would need the topic of your paper, the position on the topic, and the reasons you have for taking that position. So they've got a nice graphic here. They add the topic to the position to the reasons, and then this whole sentence is the thesis statement. Technology has decreased our level of connectedness to others because it allows us to disconnect from the people in our physical environment, and it does not foster the social skills needed in order to help us to connect to those around us. It's a little ironic since I'm doing the technology thing right now. This is an argument, and the person who wrote it would have to prove that in the paper with evidence. And then another type is analytical. That's analyzing an issue. Again, you state the topic of your paper and then what you analyze and the conclusions that you reach as a result of the analysis. So again, they're putting those parts together to get this thesis statement. An analysis of alternatives to fossil fuel energies indicates that a better option is the use of solar and wind power. So that's probably more neutral or just giving information rather than making an argument. And that's a major purpose that you'll have to decide depending on whether or not the professor told you that you have to make an argument or informative or a combination. And the last one is expository. That is strictly an explanation. That's a simpler one. A topic and key aspects. Factors relating to student success include effective time management, motivation, and family support. Obviously, you can see now where the body paragraphs are going. There will be one body paragraph on effective time management, another one on motivation, and another one on family support. So that'll be 3 body paragraphs right in the middle of the paper, which is the longest part of the paper. The intro is the head, and the conclusion is the tail, if you want to say it like that. I'm going to share another screen. Oh, this one first. Okay, we saw what the thesis is. So to say it in other words, it's a basic stand that an author takes, the opinion that he expresses, and the major point he wishes to make about his subject. It contains the controlling idea of the essay and therefore gives a direction and unity to all the separate elements of the writing. The purpose of the essay is to convince the reader that the thesis is indeed a valid one. They don't have to agree with it, but they just have to see that it's valid. Naturally, before you even write a thesis, you would have to focus, limit, or narrow your topic. And the scope is going to depend on length, purpose, audience, occasion, and knowledge. The thesis will state the subject clearly and specifically so it can be broken into parts. It will take a stand or attitude about the subject and provide the direction by indicating implicitly or explicitly the order in which the essay will develop the points. And here are some definitions of what it's not. A thesis is not a title. Your thesis cannot be the decline of baseball. That's too broad and it's a fragment. Here is a better one. Baseball, once a national pastime and even an addiction, has lost its popularity because of the new interest in more violent sports. Homes and schools. Okay, that is also way too big and broad, and it's just a little fragment. So here's the better version. If parents want better education for their children, they must be willing to commit their time to working with the schools. Okay. Here's a good one. A thesis is not an announcement of the subject. Yeah, please avoid writing anything like this. Please don't write, I want to share some thoughts with you, or my paper is about such and such, or my paragraphs will cover so and so. Never do an announcement. We know exactly what you're going to write about if you just write it like this. Since the space program has yet to provide the American people with any substantial practical returns, it is a waste of money and should be dissolved. That's definitely an argument. A thesis is not a statement of absolute fact, because if all you do is say a fact, then that's the end of it and it doesn't go anywhere. Shakespeare wrote King Lear. Well, yeah, and here's a better one. King Lear exemplifies the finest development of Shakespeare's dramatic talent. Okay, exemplifies means it's an example of his talent. So the essay would have to prove that with textual evidence from the play. A good thesis is restricted. It limits the subject to a manageable amount. Here's a poor one. People are too selfish. That's extremely broad and vague. We need something really more specific, like this. Rush hour traffic exemplifies human behavior at its worst. That's good because we all know what rush hour traffic is like, and we could totally give good examples of people behaving badly when they're driving. Crime must be stopped. Yeah, that sounds kind of like a bad campaign slogan. Here's a better thesis. To stop the alarming rise in the number of violent crimes committed every year, our courts must hand out tougher sentences. Okay, that is much more narrowed and specific, and it can be addressed in the essay. Oops. A good thesis is unified. It should express one major idea about one subject. The poor one is way too busy. Detective stories are not a high form of literature, but people have always been fascinated by them, and many fine writers have experimented with them. Oh, that is a lot going on. But look at the better one. Detective stories appeal to the basic human desire for thrills. Okay, that's focused. It's definitely unified. It's one idea about one subject, just one. A good thesis is specific. The new Denver Art Museum is impressive. That's a vague word. We don't even know what that means. A better one. The new Denver Art Museum is a monument to human folly. Well, that's specific. Okay, let's see what else I've got here. Here you need to see it as a full example in a paragraph, and this also, actually, this goes to topic sentences. Okay. A topic sentence you could think of as a mini thesis because the thesis guides the whole essay, but a topic sentence just guides an individual paragraph. The topic sentence clearly states the subject of the whole paragraph. So it has the same structure as a thesis does to an essay, but it's a topic sentence that guides just one paragraph. A good paragraph has the topic sentence stating the main point, supporting sentences with details and specific examples as proof of your point, logical, coherent thoughts that are developed in order from one sentence to the next, and a concluding idea that wraps up the point of the paragraph. And now we can see this in an actual model. Here's the main idea. My first day of college was a disaster. And then the person goes in chronological order with all the misadventures they had on their first day, like going to the wrong classroom and then missing 20 minutes of the class because they were late to the right classroom, being told that they were late, and then the history teacher spoke so fast that they couldn't follow what he said. And then during botany class, the student went to the lab and had a sneezing fit because of one of the plants. And then at the end of the day, found that they'd locked their keys in the car and had to wait for their brother to bring another set. And here is the closing sentence. My first day of school was so bad that I know the rest will have to be better. See, that's a concluding sentence. If it was for a whole essay, it would be a whole paragraph as a conclusion. So that just gives you an idea of thesis and topic sentences for paragraphs. And those are factors that you can use in pretty much any kind of writing, especially for this class. So I'll make sure to send you that information as well.